You're listening to the DC Real Estate Podcast, the podcast where we focus exclusively on all things local to the DMV area. Local investors, local knowledge, local experts. Our journey starts now.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in again. My name is Russell Brazil. I'm an associate broker with Arlo Real Estate. This week we're going to continue our conversation from last week with Ron Gallagher and Dr. Joe Asamoah. Last week's episode was running super long, so we just decided to cut it up into 2 episodes. So here's a continuation of that conversation.
So speaking of that, so it's my understanding that it's the DC Housing Authority who's paying so the DC Housing Authority sets the rent based on the number of bedrooms and the neighborhood, right? So are there neighborhoods that, like, let's say a 5-bedroom is $500,000 in Kingman Park. I'm just throwing these out here. I don't know if these are real numbers, but that same
Definitely
5-bedroom,
not a real number.
Okay, but that same 5-bedroom is $800,000 in Columbia Heights. Okay, maybe my numbers are too low.
Rent.
Yeah,
I'm talking about when you're looking to buy a house.
Acquisition price, I mean.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Because if the housing authority has set the rent at $5,462 in both Columbia Heights and Eckington and Kingman Park, whatever, then you would want to buy in Kingman Park, because if the acquisition price is lower and the rents are the same. So would you be able to divulge what neighborhoods that inequity is?
I don't want to divulge.
I was just curious.
But this is how it works, okay? And I think, I train people on this stuff. I have a joint venture program whereby I show people what I do, and they can look over my shoulders and they can replicate what I do. Because as when you get 5, 10, 15, 20 applications per house, okay, you need to be in that room when you offer that home to somebody. The joy, the excitement, the happiness, it's a dream come true. And it's a very nice feeling when you know that you're doing good and helping the family. Now, the flip side to that, you need to be in that room when I'm making that call to the other 14 people. Okay, I'm saying, I'm sorry, I've only got one house.
And as a real estate agent, I am constantly letting people down. And so I feel that pain. Yeah. I'm not necessarily doing it with tenants, I'm doing it with potential buyers a lot. Because on my rentals, I usually get 2 or 3 applicants. I usually don't get 15 or 20 like you're getting.
Yeah, it's crushing because they are tired. I mean, I gave this, let me give this story. One of my tenants now, I as part of my screening process, I go to the people's homes. Okay, that's because I want to see how they keep their home. Because how they keep their home today is how my house is going to be in 3 months. So as part of the home visit, she lived in Congress Heights in Southeast, and a pretty rough neighborhood. Okay, a rough part of Congress. And she said, "Look, don't judge me by what's outside, because I can't control this neighborhood. Okay, judge me by what's inside my house." And her house is spotless, immaculate. The kids are well behaved and so on. She said, my biggest fear, I hate living here. My biggest fear is that my kids will get killed on the way home from school. Okay, shot, killed. So that's what's on her mind every single day living there. And she's just tired of it. She just wants an opportunity. So it's great when you offer that person the chance to move to a better area. Now, the other side is you're calling her and say, I'm sorry. I don't have anything, so I'm sorry. You're going to have to stay here still. Okay? Tough luck.
Yeah, so it's not just the letdown of, oh, you didn't get this house. It's the letdown of a lifestyle getting out of that type of community into a better one.
But if you've already identified her as a tier 1 tenant, do you have like a Dr. Joe waiting list? Like, here's a standby list. Well, like, in 2 weeks, I'll have this other rehab done.
I say, I'm going to teach Russell. I'm going to teach everybody what I do. I mean, it's okay. I have.
Yeah. So tell us about the joint venture program, where people can find out information about this.
Because what I realize is that the best way to learn real estate, the best way to do real estate, okay, is it's not to watch YouTube videos all day. or to read a book. It's to do a deal.
Oh, whoops.
I mean, it's to do it. It's to do a deal. Okay, I mean, you learn so much by doing it. Okay, and the next best thing, in my opinion, is to look over the shoulders of somebody else who's successfully doing what it is that you want to do. Okay, so and so therein lies the premise of the JV program. If people believe in what I do, they understand what I do, and they want to do what I do, then the best way to do it is to see how I do it, and to real time, look over the shoulders as I go through this project from start to finish. So on the Brooklyn house, we have like 15 or a number of people who are looking over my shoulders as we do this transaction. They see everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, okay?
And there is bad and there is ugly.
Oh, my goodness. Things go wrong. You get contractors who, what happens behind this wall when you take it down? You see stuff that you don't want to see, and stuff that you want to see is not there. Now what? Okay.
That's why I don't take down walls, because I don't have.
Yeah, we got a flip going on in Brentwood right now with DMV flippers, and look like pretty straightforward. Well, next thing you know, we're jackhammering up the basement floor to get water management systems in that we didn't expect needed to go in.
You get all kind of things that you don't expect to see. But the problem is, you bought the house. It's your house now. You got to deal with it, okay? And I think it's not right of me to sugarcoat that. I think it's important that you see this is the real world. Okay, it's not your HGTV programs where you buy a house at 10 o'clock, at 10:30 it's done, everyone's all smiles. You run through problems, and these are not so much that you run through problems, but how does Dr. Joe? What are the options, and why did he choose option B instead of A, or option C instead of B? Why? Because you may run into those scenarios yourself. At least you have some context. So that's the whole idea, is that I think that people will learn more by looking over my shoulder as we execute, and therefore give them the encouragement and motivation, because to actually go out there and do it themselves. And what I found is that this always happens in the JV program. When people start, they say, you're Dr. Joe, you can do this. I can't do this. I'm just a new investor. But as they go through, at some point, everyone's different. It clicks. I get it. I get this, okay? Because once you get over that psychological hurdle, then you can then go to the next thing. Let's see how I can do. Well, I don't have any money, or I don't have the contractors, or whatever. But you've got over that psychological hurdle of I can do this, okay? And that's when we go to the next step. It's putting all those other pieces. So the idea is that by looking over my shoulders, it gives them the motivation to actually go out there and execute.
And so it's giving them the motivation. And it's not as hard as people think, but you do have to face adversity. Understanding how to push through the adversity is such an important skill, and really does sift out in any kind of business, whether it's real estate or anything. It's going to sift out how you deal with when things go wrong is going to show whether you succeed or not.
I think that's absolutely right, because what we're doing is not rocket science. It's whether you have the wherewithal to see it all through.
But some clients, so here's a good example. I remember soon after you bought that house on 14th Street, Ron, your HVAC died. Well, you got it fixed. No big deal, right?
Whatever.
But I have other clients, and maybe my wife, who, when the HVAC goes out, have complete meltdowns.
It was $3,000, and now I have a new HVAC that'll last me 15 years, and
But
whatever.
some people, for whatever reason, can't get past that psychological barrier of when stuff goes wrong, fix it and move on. Yeah. It doesn't need to be the end of the world.
Because in the end, you're going to get rich anyway, so who really cares?
Yeah.
Well, if you can survive,
So the other thing I like about your JV program is that it's happening now. You're doing it this year. A lot of teachers or gurus are teaching a program that worked 20 years ago but doesn't work in today's market. Exactly. What I like is that you're doing it right now.
Yeah, you see it. You see this ugly duckling being transformed into a beautiful swan. But we go all the way through to where how do you find a tenant? How do you screen a tenant? How do you navigate the Section 8 bureaucracy? And how do you move and manage that relationship? That's part one. Part two is, if you're a new investor, you don't have contractors. You may not have a lender. You may not have a team. Okay, so you may not have systems. So the idea is to leverage my relationships. Okay, my team, my members, my contractors, my relationships, such that you can go further faster. So you don't have to recreate the wheel. That's the second part. There's the education part, and then it's sort of the team, which a lot of people don't have on day one, but they can leverage mine.
That's a good point. I call it the Rolodex. Like, okay, I have like 3 plumbers,
Yeah,
in my Rolodex, and then as like a contractor starts charging me more and more unfairly, then I'm like, all right, now I'll move this next guy up. Or if a plumber isn't reliable, then you move them up. But
right, and you could be using a contractor for 5 years who's been great, but contractors are people, right? They might have...
They always have that little creep in price.
Right, well, that's going to happen, but like they may go off the ledge and suddenly become a drug addict and be a terrible contractor someday, right? So you do have to be able to pivot away as people's situations change. So like having, like you say, the Rolodex...
Yeah.
And people just starting out don't have a Rolodex at all. No. So it becomes even more intimidating. Not only are you learning all this stuff for the first time, now you've got to come up with an electrician, a plumber, a pest management person.
Yeah, I mean, on the way here, while I was driving up here, I was speaking to one of the students, and he just bought his house. In fact, we're shadowing him on this JV program. So the idea is that the premise is that we have a new investor who went through a program and now had bought a house. Okay, so they're buying their first house. And so on this program, we have 2 other people who are doing the same thing. So this program, you're seeing my project, but you're also seeing some new investors as they go through their first project. Okay, so if you're a new investor, this investor who's buying their first house is really just one step ahead of you. Okay, so all the fears, concerns, and trepidations that this person have, you can connect with that. Okay, and you can see this person doing it. So it gives you that confidence and motivation to say, okay, well, if this guy can do it, then, maybe I can do this as well. And that's how it's, so I said, the whole idea is I wanted to show people what I do. And so we can replicate this model. And so they can make money, but also they can do good. I have a lot of houses. I don't need any more houses. But I just buy it because I enjoy it. But I think what I want to do is to let me give you this story. I always got so many stories. Good one.
You're good with stories, yeah.
I was talking to my mother. Okay, about 2 or 3 years ago. She was telling me, Joseph, why are you doing this? Why? To her, like 2 houses, like okay, that's enough. Why are you buying so many houses? When is enough enough? When is enough? She's a typical mother. When is enough enough? Why don't you just stop and
I think it's a great question. When is enough?
When is enough enough? Yeah, it's a very legitimate question from her perspective. She was confused as to why I'm doing this, and so I thought about that, and there was a time where I said, I don't need to do any more. I have enough. I mean, I've got the cash flow coming through. I've got the equity bill. I've got all that stuff. I don't need to do any more. But then I thought about it and said, well, maybe it's a warped way of thinking, but this lady who lives in Congress Heights, okay, if it wasn't because of me, she wouldn't be able to get out of her environment, okay? So if I stop, who's going to address her situation, okay? And, who? Nobody. So it's kind of selfish for me to stop. I mean, maybe it's a warped way of thinking.
But those people need you to buy more.
They need to buy more.
Yeah.
They need me to buy, and they need me to train people, Ron, Russell, how to do this, because who's going to do it?
Yeah.
So that was my self-justification as to why I should continue it.
So how many houses do you own right now?
Oh, God.
Or have you lost track?
It's over 35.
That's crazy. And I know that when you have the tier 1 tenants, being a property manager is...
I manage all these properties myself.
That's crazy.
I don't have a property
So
manager.
so even though you have tier 1 tenants and they're in general better than your average tenant, you're still going to have drama, right? So
they're still people.
So how do you handle just that enormous amount of tenants?
It's pretty straightforward, really. The key to my success is the screening. Okay, if you can screen well, okay, then that's a big problem that's taken off your plate. That's number one. Number two is I realized that there are two assets in this business. Most investors see it as one asset. Most investors, it's about the physical asset, which is the real estate. That is the asset. Okay, we have to protect that asset. Okay, because that's what's going to build us wealth. What I realized is that there's a second asset, and that is the human asset, the tenant. Okay, because if you can take care of that asset, because the human asset can destroy the physical asset. We agree with that, don't we? Mm-hmm. So if you take care of the human asset, they're more likely to take and protect the physical asset. Okay, so therefore it's all about that. Okay, it's about making sure I screen well, but once they're in my home, making sure that I treat them so well, they're not even thinking about going to your house, Ron. Okay, they're not even considering leaving. Okay, that's where the Mother's Day gifts come in. Every Mother's Day, I give them bouquets of flowers, Christmas presents, free vacations, $50 to the kids when they do. I mean, that's where this part comes in. It's making sure that they know that I treasure them. They know that, I'm doing the right thing, and therefore they're going to do the right thing, and so on. So you all the drama that you ordinarily would get, okay, you don't have. Okay, and so I take care of them in such a way that it's in their interest to take care of my property. And I don't physically. I used to manage all these properties myself, but now I have an assistant, and because I couldn't find a management company that did it my way. There's no management company that goes to people's homes to screen. There's no management company that gives bouquets of flowers or Christmas presents or kids free vacation. No management company does that. So I couldn't find anybody. And when I started out, I did have some management company. I tried it out. It just didn't work. After a year or two, they'll leave, and you'll have that revolving door all the time. And it wasn't working. So the only way to make it work was to do it my way. And I trained an assistant to do it my way. And that's how we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what I call ethical landlording. I don't know if you label what you do anything with a particular name, but yeah. So many landlords out there are kind of scumbags, right? They're slumlords. They view their tenants as below them. No, I view my tenants are my customers. I am providing a product to them. Exactly. I want to provide the best product to them. I want to provide the best customer service to them. And like any business, if I am providing a good product and good customer service, my customers are generally going to pay their bills, right? Which is their rent. They're generally going to treat the product nicely. They are going to have good relationships with me. So many landlords out there, as we kind of joked once, Ron, that like, the word landlord is a little like non-PC these days, being the lord of the land, right? And so I view myself as a business that is providing a product, and that product is housing. I want it to be the best that it can be. Exactly. You're taking it even another step further. You're celebrating their birthdays. I love this. You give them a weekend at your Shenandoah Valley condo.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, so what I realized, just what you said, if you have a good customer, forget the tenant label, a good customer, it's cheaper to keep an existing customer happy than it is to go find another one.
It's in business in general, it's 10 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than to retain an existing one.
So it's 10 times more expensive to have a turnover than it is to keep your existing tenant there. Okay, that's what I realized. And therefore, I had to make sure that because I don't want turnover. I just don't. It's very, very expensive. I mean, it's especially with a single family, because it's feast or famine. You either get your rent or you get zero.
Yeah. Okay. And when we're talking about properties with $3,000-$4,000 mortgage payments, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. So each turnover is really costing you minimum 2 months lost income, possibly up to 3 months after you take out the repairs lost income,
repainting the whole place.
All that stuff. When you add it all up together, including your time,
you get 2 months of missed rent at $5,000. That's $10,000.
10K.
Plus the turnover costs. We're talking $15,000 on a turnover.
Easily. And so it's all the cash flow that you make every month gets completely wiped out when there's a turnover in the single family space. And so it's not a sustainable business model if you have a regular revolving door of tenants. It's just not a sustainable bit. You think you're making money, but you're really not making anything. Okay. And so that's where I realized that I have to have zero turnover. So when I'm choosing people, I'm looking for a 10, 15-year relationship. That's the screening. Okay. So, and if you speak to these tier 1 voucher holders, that is music to their ears. They don't want to leave. They're tired of living in bad areas.
They live someplace for 2 or 3 years. Landlord tells them to get out because they're selling the property.
Yeah, or what's it called? Or the guy next door got shot at.
Yeah.
And so they don't want their kids to be in that environment, so they have to go. And so it's extremely stressful for them. And so when I tell them that, look, I'm looking for the world's greatest tenant because I'm the world's greatest landlord. I'm looking for a tenant that's going to be here at least 10 years. Okay. I mean, to a market renter, that you think, whatever, 10 years. I'm not staying here for 10 years, pay $4,000. Are you crazy? Hell no. But for a voucher holder, it's like, whoa, at last, we got stability.
Stability in an awesome neighborhood most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a different perspective because it's taking that understanding who your customer is, taking the time to understand who they are, what they're looking for, what they are not looking for, where do they want to live, where do they not want to live, who do they want to rent from, who do they not. It's taking the time, and this is just business. And then you can create a product and you can nurture that relationship with your customer such that, you don't have that turnover that other landlords have. And that's essentially the gist of this business.
What would you say your average length of a tenant stay would be? Are we talking decades? Are we talking 10, 15 years?
No, I think I'm averaging right now. We did the math last year, like 7.5 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's about 7.5 years. So which means that we have people way over that. We have the new ones, obviously. They're less than 7.5.
But on average.
Yeah.
And I'd say, so my tenants who are typically market rate in my single families typically stay about 4 years. So yours are staying typically twice as long as my tenants.
Yeah. But don't forget the rents I'm charging are higher.
Yeah.
These are people who are staying for 7 years, 7.5 years at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000.
And I think one of the interesting things too with the Section 8 strategy that really lends itself to the ability of you with the help you've hired to sort of self-manage is the fact that it is guaranteed rent and it's being direct deposited to you, right? So you're probably spending less time chasing down rent, less evictions, just less overall time on accounting.
It can. Okay, that's why I want to make sure that I don't sugarcoat.
You still have to collect their portion.
No, it's all about. That's all true if you have a good tenant.
Yeah, and they're not all good.
Now, if you don't have a good tenant, then it's all bets are off. You may not collect your rent from your tenant. Okay, I mean the Section 8 portion is guaranteed. Yeah. That's going to come regardless, come what may. As long as they're in your home, they're going to be there. But you may not have a tenant who's going to protect your investment by taking care of it. You may not have a tenant who, drama. There's people that drama just follows them.
And the drama is not worth any dollar amount.
It's not. That's what I'm saying. So this is where the screening comes in. Because now I have a course. We're going to put a course on screening, tenant screening management. That's going to be the next one we're going to do probably in March sometime. But that's the key. You mess up on that, it's not good. And then let me just say this one. All what I'm doing absolutely collapses if I don't do it right on the screening. Because I'm buying houses in $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 neighborhoods, okay, with homeowners who will pay $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 to live there. They are not going to be welcoming of my social experiment. if I'm bringing gangsters, hoodlums, drama, chaos, they're going to say, "Hey, we didn't spend $800,000 to be a guinea pig in your experiment. Get these people out of here." Okay. So that's the key. You see, if you screen right and do it right, get a tier 1 tenant, it's a win-win for everybody. Okay, but if you mess upon that one, then this whole business model collapses because your neighbors aren't going to put up with this thing, and they're going to call all kind of people on you.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't hammer home the tenant screening better because I'll tell you, I feel like every new investor goes through this, and I absolutely did. When I bought one of my first couple of properties, I was so scared of having to pay that mortgage payment without the rent coming in and I think everyone's done this. We've put a subpar tenant into the property.
You just take the first person because you're new.
Because you're so scared.
Right.
And it's a disaster every time. I've done it. I'm sure everyone listening has done it. Don't be afraid of going another month.
Yes.
It's only that 1 month's mortgage. I promise you will get a good tenant.
But when you're new to it,
But
you
gotta hold out.
and you're also not in the financial position. Like, I could let something go vacant for a couple of months and be like, that's fine.
No big deal now.
Right now, but when you're just starting out, your number, you're just trying to make those numbers to make it work.
Yeah, but I'm
Maybe
telling
you're
you,
only making 50
you've got
bucks.
this asset worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Whatever that mortgage payment is, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, let it go vacant. Get the right tenant. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be stuck with this jerk, and you're going to have to evict him at some point. And I did my last eviction maybe 3 years ago, and it was a tenant I had for about 8 years. And I should not have put that tenant in the initial time. They were terrible on my mental health for 8 years, just dealing with their BS and their drama. And I think my mortgage on that was like, I don't know, $1,500, right? If I just let that go vacant for another month, got the next tenant, that $1,500 loss for that 1 month would have saved me 8 years of headaches.
Yeah, sometimes it's cheaper. It is always. It's cheaper to have a vacant house than it is to have the wrong tenant.
So we're talking about vacancies, which normally isn't that big of an issue in DC, but and deadbeat tenants and stuff. So during the pandemic, I had about 5 deadbeat tenants. Russell fared a little bit better. How did you survive the pandemic from a landlord perspective?
0 turnover.
Because with a voucher holder, we're typically not worried about losing our jobs because they're already on assistance.
Yeah. So answer your question directly. The rent is in 2 parts. There's the housing authority portion, and there's the tenant portion. The housing authority portion, that's clockwork. It comes what May.
So 100%, you got all the government money.
All the governments I've been doing this for Section 8 for at least 28, 30 years. Okay, there has never been a month, never ever, whereby they didn't pay. As long as there's tenants in there, that money is coming to your account. Government shut down or no government shut down, that money is hitting your account. So that's a very reliable stream. So the other portion is the tenant portion. Now, in a downturn, or what we go through COVID, is that people lose their jobs. The economy hits them. Okay, so when people lose their job, the difference is that, and I've had this. It's a horrible conversation to have when you have a great tenant who loses their job. That is a horrible conversation because they're good people. They just can't pay. Okay, but with a voucher holder, if they lose their jobs, because their rent is based on their income, if they lose their job, then their income goes down. So they go to the housing authority and their rent gets adjusted. Okay, so if the rent, let's just argue and say the total rent is $3,500. $3,000 comes from the housing authority and $500 comes from the tenant. Okay, and that $500 is based on their income. So if their income goes down, then they're going to go to the housing authority, and the housing authority may reduce their rent from $500. So they say $200. So they're now paying $200, and their portion, the housing authority, now goes up to $3,300 to offset the difference. Okay, so I'm still getting $35. It's just that the allocation is different. So you're not so. It doesn't matter. It's recession proof. That's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if they lose their jobs or not.
Now, do you need the tenant to go to the housing authority if they lose their job?
They will go because they're going to get their rent go down.
Because part of the problem, well, that's true.
I mean, who's not going to?
So they're incentivized because they're gonna make out better.
Exactly.
Because part of the problem with these rental assistance programs, like when I was trying to recoup the money for the deadbeat tenants, all of them, without exception, involves the tenant doing something.
Yeah.
So, but there's no incentive necessarily. I mean, other than if they don't want to see me in court later. But it was.
Believe me, look, if you're a tenant and all you got to do is go down to the housing authority in an hour, your rent's going to go from $500 to $250. They're on a whole lot, and you are on fixed income, low income. Okay, where $50 is a big deal to you. Okay, now is a chance to get your rent reduced from $500 to $250. 99.99% is going to go down there. Now, the flip side is the problem. The flip side is not a problem. Is that if their income goes up, they may take their time. To go out to the housing authority.
But you don't care.
I don't care.
Right.
They're not going to be the rush.
So the fact that you knew the numbers for the average tenancy for your tenants, you may know the answer to this question. What percentage would you say of your gross rents comes from the government versus the tenant self-paying?
Spread over. I mean, I do have some market. Not all my tenants are voucher holders, but the vast majority are. Out of the voucher holders, let's have a look. I would say it varies. I would say on average it's around. Let's say an average rent of $4,000 because some are higher, some of them most of them are higher than that though. But on an average rent of $4,500, probably the average portion of the tenant is about $500.
So it's a 90-10 split, probably,
yeah, so
right about.
It's a pretty steep. Let's just take the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just take the Pareto's principle. So 80% of the rent is from the housing authority, 20% is from the tenant. Yeah. So I know that 80% of my income is coming through regardless.
Right. That's what I'd want that portion to be as high as possible. So that's
exactly.
great.
So that's why when you screen, it's really sad, but when you're screening for a market renter, your FICO score and your income, your job, is the key. If you don't have a job, I assume you're not going to rent to them. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. If they were like a Bitcoin millionaire, maybe.
Okay, so I get Russell. Hey, Russell, I love your place. I don't have a job right now.
Yeah. Income and credit score.
Well, here's the question. Do you see their portion, and would you favor a tenant, all things being equal, would you favor a tenant that doesn't have a job but has a higher proportion of their rent being paid by the government? Yeah. I'd rather pick that person over the person that has a job.
That's you hit the nail on the head. Okay, that's the big difference between when you're screening for a market renter and screening for a voucher holder. If you're screening for a market renter, FICO and income is the absolute key. Okay, because you make a mistake there, you're dead. Okay, on a voucher holder, it's not so important. It doesn't matter if they don't have a job. To tell the truth.
I would think you'd almost want them not to have income.
Well, we'll go that far.
But all things equal, wouldn't you prefer the person that has more government pay?
Well, you got the whole social policy stuff that kicks in. I don't want to get into that. But all I have to say is
definitely the guaranteed rent is a plus.
Yeah.
I would be like, oh, you have a job and you have to pay $500 yourself? Forget you. I'm going to go get this guy that only pays $100.
So what Ron's getting at is during the pandemic, Ron has had a few subpar tenant experiences.
I'm just bitter.
Yeah.
Ron's had a few non-paying tenants during all of this.
Yeah, I didn't have that issue with that. Spread over all those properties over this period of time. I didn't. My income stream is pretty reliable, and that's again. That's been I'm doing this, having gone through 4 cycles. I've been through 4 of these things before. Okay. And so I've been through what you're going through, where you got a great tenant who can't pay you. Okay. Or in DC, you got a great tenant who doesn't want to pay you. Now what? Okay. And now you got to deal with the whole landlord-tenant laws, which are skewed in the tenant's favor. I've had to deal with all that stuff. And that's why I said, it's not a sustainable. I need reliability of income. Okay, if I'm going to take on all this debt, okay, I need to have a very, very stable income stream that I know is going to hit my account every month, come what may. So I know that 80% of my money is coming into my account every month, come what may, as long as that person is in the house. And therefore, to me, that is a business model I can work around. You know, if I have to sort of say, oh my God, I hope that this guy doesn't lose his job because of COVID or whatever it is.
Whatever
Because I'll tell you,
is.
at the beginning of COVID, I had that fear. I was like, oh my God, all of my tenants are going to stop paying. And so I did proactively email every single one of my tenants and said something along the lines of, and I was, again, good customer service is where I always want to stay, be coming from. So I emailed them all like, hey, I'm not trying to pressure you or insinuate anything. I just want to know ahead of time, if you believe you are going to have trouble paying the rent, please let me know so that I can plan accordingly. So I just know what my financial situation is, because I got to still pay these mortgages. And what was interesting was every single person replied to me. All of them except for one said, "Oh no, we're just working from home. Our job is good." And I had one guy. He was a bartender. He's like, "I'm not going to be working. I just want to let you know, and I'll update you as I know." And I think the first month he still paid his rent, and then when we got to month 2 and 3, this was during the lockdowns. He couldn't get on unemployment really because he was a bartender, so he wasn't reporting a lot of his income. And so he let me know up front, and I said, "All right, what can we do because I also don't want to turn the place over. Guy's been a good tenant for a long time." So we cut his rent in half for 2 months. He was ecstatic. He loved me for this. And then when things got back up and running, he started working, paid his rent. But for the simple discount of giving him 50% off his rent for 2 months, that guy has been unbelievably happy. Can't say, enough nice things about me. I'm also in a position where I was much happier because A, it didn't go completely vacant. I didn't pressure, like, if you're putting too much pressure on these guys, they might just not pay at all, right? If you're an asshole to them, maybe they say, he can't evict me, I'm not going to pay at all, but he still paid half his rent. So it worked out very well for me. A little bit better than it worked out for you, Ron.
Yeah, it's very scary, downturns. Because I've seen guys who are doing great in the uptime.
We're all geniuses in the bull market.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it turns that I've seen guys go bankrupt. Guys, just failed, and it's not a pretty sight, the downturn, and so it's a very sobering experience, and so you realize that you are fallible, and all this stuff about long term wealth building collapses when you can't pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. You have a lot of properties and you're pretty well insulated, so this probably won't affect you so much. But let's say you were a new investor with your JV program. Do you have any concern at all that the government might one day say, this experiment to have Section 8 housing in Georgetown and Columbia Heights and Eckington and, west of the river, you have no concern that the government is going to one day say, this didn't work out.
The reason why I say I have zero concern about that is that they've been saying that for 30 years I've been doing this. And it never happens, regardless of administration, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Secondly, and this is the more important one, it is cheaper, absolutely cheaper, to give me $5,000 than it is to have a family of 7 homeless. Pure numbers. Okay, it is cheaper because those people are here. They're going to have to go somewhere. Okay, someone's going to have to pay them. There are costs associated with either social costs or whatever it is. So it's cheaper for them to give me the money where I can provide quality housing than it is to have them homeless.
Right, but lawmakers don't always understand that. Just like with rent control,
well,
it always ends negatively.
If there was ever a chance of that happening, it would have happened with the last administration, and they didn't even. There was not even any talk of it.
It's not gonna. It ain't gonna happen.
We're not going to move further conservative in government policy than what just happened.
The other option is the government takes over the housing, projects, and they've tried that before.
That doesn't work out either.
And that's been an absolute disaster.
Yeah, disaster. So it's cheaper to incentivize private landlords, to take on these families than it is for the government to do it themselves. And also, it's just cheaper. I was speaking to one of my my tenants, okay, about 3 or 4 months ago, I think it was, yeah. She lives in one of my homes. Just by her living in my house, okay, 2 of her kids have got a full ride to go to college. A full ride to go to college, okay? Just by her being in a better neighborhood, better neighbors, better schools, and the kids being in a better environment, okay? This is when you want to bring it all together, okay? This is what's happening here. When you provide what I do, which is a good product in a tier 1 neighborhood, where you give these families who really have to cut through the chase, are really no different than your kids or my kids or whatever it is. They're just looking for a night. They just don't have any money. That's the main difference. Okay, but they have the same aspirations and the same sort of desires of their family, their children, the community. They have all that stuff. They just don't have the opportunity. And so when you give them that chance, I'm not saying it's for all of them, but I was just having this. I just have these conversations with my tenants. I spend time with them, where you just sit down and get to know them, and when you cut through the facade, they're really just regular folks and the same concerns that everybody else has, and they're just looking for a chance and looking for somebody to give them an opportunity, and that's what's going on. You get full rides to go to college. You get kids going to school, better than themselves, better than it's a very. Now, I'm not saying they all do that. I'm just saying that, it's very rewarding when you know that you've been a part of that.
So tell us, kind of run along here. Go ahead and tell us where we can find out about your JV program and anything else you want people to know about that, where they can find you online.
Sure, yeah. My JV program, I think I described today, I believe that the best way to learn is to do. Yeah. And the JV program is an opportunity to do that. We just started one last week, in fact, 2 weeks ago. But we do them several times a year. And you go to my website, which is joeasamoah.com, Joe, J-O-E, Asamoah, A-S-A-M-O-A-H.com. And I do other training programs throughout the year on specific topics, whether it be tenant screening, whether it be on the Section 8, because some people, they're not interested in learning the whole thing. They've got a house, they want to learn about Section 8. That's all they're interested in. So we have a course on that. If someone's just saying, look, I just want to learn how you do screening better. Okay, so we have a course on that. I want to know how to raise money so I can do deals. So we have these specific courses on there. You go by social media, Instagram and Facebook. Dr. My handle is Dr. Joe Asamoah, Dr. Joe Asamoah.
And you've really blown up on Instagram because just a couple of years ago, I think you had about 10% or 20% of the amount of followers I've had. Now you have 50, 60% more than I have.
So yeah.
I think leveraging Bigger Pockets has really been good for your Instagram following.
Yes. I try to help out. I'm just all about giving. I'm about helping. I do have a Wealth Wednesdays every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's on Instagram and also on Facebook. It's free. And
is that on meetup.com too? I feel like I get emails from Meetup for it.
Yeah. Up there. And so we pick a topic and we talk about it. I provide quality content, not fluff. And we'll go deeper into certain subjects. I'm trying to do more videos this year. And
are you still doing the Facebook Lives with Bigger Pockets?
Yes. Yeah. They've gone through a few. I used to do Facebook Lives with Bigger Pockets, but I think they've gone through some changes there, so that's no longer going on.
Okay.
But I do have the Wealth Wednesdays on my Instagram and Facebook platforms, so check me out. And if I can be of assistance, you can also reach me on my emails, info at joeasamoah.com.
Yeah, and guys, reach out to him. Joe's just a wealth of knowledge, and he's one of the most humble and honest guys you're ever going to meet in this industry. I've always found him extremely helpful to bounce ideas off of. So anyways, We will head on out here, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the DC Real Estate Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to contact the hosts, reach out to them at info@dcrealestatepodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you access your podcasts.